A good title sequence will create a space for a television show to inhabit, an undiluted, uncompromised statement of concept and intent. Stuart Manning, Adventures in Type and Space.
New Doctor Who is here once more, and whilst there is a lot to love and a lot of better things I could be doing with my time, I'm a Doctor Who fan, and thus I must complain. A little, as a treat. Now, bear in mind, I don't like being overly negative, nor do I like nitpicking something for the sake of nitpicking. I'd rather celebrate the good stuff. So just know that this has really been playing on my mind. A new era of Doctor Who is beginning, and with it comes a new title sequence. And I don't like it all that much. One of the most iconic pieces of Doctor Who, and one of my favourites, is the title sequence. Led by Ron Grainer and Delia Derbyshire's iconic sound, and with some groundbreaking graphics work by Ben Palmer, it instantly cemented itself within the minds of the public. And this has only continued to be the case, with the impressive slit scan work of Bernard Lodge's 70s sequences, and the impressive for the time CG sequence of the 7th Doctor's era being pioneering and iconic pieces of British television. I am one of those people that likes to search YouTube for fan-made title sequences. I am fascinated by how different people reinterpret the opening titles and theme tune. And it's always fascinating seeing the ways in which people create fan-made title sequences for a new era for which only the logo has been revealed. So, when the newly redesigned Diamond logo was revealed, a glut of great fan design sequences hit the net, all excitedly envisioning what the new titles could be. And I'm excited with them. I love seeing how the show wants to identify itself for that era, and I'm always excited to see what the team behind these sequences come up with. And here's the thing, this new era is a big step for Doctor Who. With a whole new production company, new and improved funding, hopes of a wider audience base, and hopes of building Doctor Who into a wider global franchise. This new title sequence had to hit. It had to say, this is Doctor Who, and we can stand toe-to-toe with the rest of them. And it just doesn't do that, sadly. So, for the rest of this video, forgive me as I nitpick this sequence to death. This section is going to concern the weird timing of the opening titles, because I think it's a good indication of how easily this title sequence could be fixed. This is going to be a lot of me counting, and I'm quite sorry because this is quite boring. The original incarnation of the intro theme was 16 bars long in total, with half of that being the baseline intro. It was at bar 9 alongside the main melody kicking in that the Doctor Who logo, such as it was, came in. This timing would remain consistent until the 3rd Doctor's tenure, with the 1970s titles only having 4 bars of intro before the main melody kicked in. The 3rd Doctor's silhouette would then appear at bar 5, with the logo still kicking in at bar 9 with the second half of the main melody. The slit scan title sequence is a little more interesting. With the timing of the music retained, the title moves back to around bar 11 in time with the counter melody, and in the 4th Doctor's case, the silhouette moving back to bar 9 where the logo had been previously. There's a reason these titles are probably the most iconic in the show's history. Lodge's design work is incredible, and the sequence has a great flow to it that just really works. It kept the feeling of the howl around with these swirling patterns but felt modernised for the 70s and the post-2001 age. The 1980 titles buck the trend again, with the 4th Doctor's face moving back to bar 5, but the logo not appearing until bar 12 with the last major hit of the main melody. And then, the 7th and 8th Doctor's intro themes are both just too different in construction to warrant mentioning here, because comparing them to the new titles would be pointless. Whatever the case may be, the classic titles all had their sequences feel motivated in large part by the music, with the main parts of the melody often kicking in around major beats in the sequence like the Doctor's face or the logo. And this would be a trend that would carry forward into the modern era, although the timings would shift somewhat as the format of the opening titles changed. The 9th, 10th, and 11th Doctor sequences all had the same timing. 8 bars of intro, names coming in with the main melody in bar 9, and then the main title in bar 13 with the second part of that melody. The 12th Doctor's is much the same, with the main title pushed to bar 14, with Capaldi's eyes coming in with a musical push in bar 13. This does have the effect of lessening the impact of the Doctor Who logo, as the emphasis is placed on Capaldi's eyes instead. The Capaldi titles have other issues, and we'll get back to that. They're not perfect. Weirdly, this face timing was a thing they got right in the Series 7B titles, with the names being quicker and having the face fly past in bars 11 and 12. This works a lot better, even if the Series 7B title sequence remains the worst one, in my opinion. For the 13th Doctor, the timing was truncated, with the intro now being shortened to 4 bars, and the names coming in bar 5 alongside that main melody, and that sweet, sweet bass drop. The main title comes in bar 9, still accompanied by the second half of the melody. This title sequence is one of my favourites. I think Sega Nakanola's music is a great reinvention of Delia Derbyshire's original arrangement, and the visuals are an incredible modernisation of the Howl-Around as well. And then came the Star Beast, debuting the new sequence and the new timing, and I'm baffled. Musically, the sequence has an 8-bar introduction, with the main melody coming in on bar 9. So, as per all the previous Bond Who title sequences, this should mean that the name should come in on bar 9 with the melody, so that they're given emphasis. Unfortunately, no. Instead, they come in on bar 5, with Tennant/Gatwa's name accompanied by this little brass riff, and Tate/Gibson's name accompanied by the glissando, followed by a couple of brass notes to mark the name's presence. However, to me, neither of these give the names any impact, because this is still musically the introduction. It still feels like a build-up, and the music isn't able to have proper weight to it yet. So, for as much as they've tried to emphasise the names with these little additions, it just feels like noise rather than a guiding light to draw attention to the names. And that's something that I think goes underappreciated in film and TV music. For as much as we talk about lighting or blocking guiding the eye, we don't talk about music doing the same. The right musical cue tells us when something is important, and works in tandem with the cinematography, performance, and staging to help guide the viewer along on the journey. The most obvious example is probably the horror sting. If something moves in the background, the music stirs for a moment, which then triggers your brain to notice the movement more than you might otherwise. And it's the same in a title sequence like Doctor Who's. You want to draw attention to your cast's names, and letting the music do that for you is a good way to do that. But here, they just don't give it that opportunity. And the thing is, they could have done. Typically, the 8-bar intro has also been split into 2, with the intro shifting into a more complex and layered version of the bassline in bar 5. Think of how the strings come in bar 5 for the titles of the first RTD era. There's a change there that could have been utilised to emphasise the name credits if that's the route you wanted to go down. Unfortunately, that's not the case, as instead they opted to give the intro its own melody ornamentation thing with the brass line. So because that needed to be its own complete thing, which musically should be 8 bars to feel whole, the intro can't change to add in another element in bar 5 along with the names. Instead, you have to try and emphasize elements that are already present in the preceding 4 bars, which doesn't work. There isn't a change in the dynamics of the piece to guide the eye and get you to pay attention to the names. But hey, those are just the actors' credits. We like the actors, obviously, but we can live without their names being given extra emphasis. So how about the show's logo? They must have done this so that the show's logo could move back to its original timings and come in with the start of the main melody, right? Right? No, it doesn't. Instead, we get the TARDIS bursting out of a nebula and a snap zoom where the logo has typically been on the 9th bar, accompanied by the main melody. The logo comes in on bar 11, brought in by this synth drone and emphasised by this piano ornamentation, and it's fine, but it was a lot better than fine before. It's slap bang in the middle of a melodic sequence, so unlike placing it on the 9th or 13th bar, you have to add in a little extra ornamentation like the piano bit to draw attention to it. And you don't need those extra twiddly bits when you already have inbuilt points at which you can add in those textual elements to give emphasis. So the timing is weird. Why is that? Well, I have a guess, and that's the missing shot. You thought that this sequence was a complete piece and was just timed a bit weirdly? Oh no, my friends, this is an incomplete jigsaw, and the missing piece is dragging the whole thing down. So, what was that shot? Well, let's let the people behind it explain.
We filmed a bit to go in the title sequence. Talk us through it, producers.
All right then.
What was
Phil,
what happened there?
What do you think, Phil?
I think you should speak.
I think I'm the only person that liked it.
Oh, really?
Faithful viewers, we shot a sequence in the middle of this, in the title sequence, where David and Catherine hang out at the TARDIS doors. We then shot it for shooting in Millie as well. They hang out at the TARDIS. Wow,
Oh, you shot it with shooting
with all the time vortices going past. Literally, it was like a war of attrition.
Everyone who watched it hated it.
Everyone just, I loved it.
I liked it. I did like it.
Oh,
I did
why
like it.
didn't
I
we?
told you I liked it.
So you got worn down.
Eventually it was Moffat. Who happened to see it.
What's he got to do with anything
I
anymore?
played it to him. I went, look, what a great big title sequence we've got. And he went, oh, that's absolutely brilliant. Cut that shot. He would literally, lethally
Really?
cut that shot. Like, I went, oh, don't you like cut that shot? But isn't it cut that shot?
No debate.
No debate.
No debate.
So, there's a shot missing, and we know for a fact that this shot was taken out sometime around the post-production of Boom, since Moffat saw it, and because an unseen shot from the title sequence can be seen in the background of this Instagram post from Majid Medazada Valajurdi. So we know that it was pretty far along in the process that this shot was cut. These ADR sessions took place in early July of 2023, the episode having been shot in March, according to Doctor Who magazine issue 593. This issue also says that the end of June is when Murray Gold delivered the new arrangement of the theme to the producers. So at this point we're only a few months out from the specials airing, and with the sequence looking as polished as it does, and with the music already being delivered, I'm guessing that this was quite late in the game for a shot to be cut. I'm assuming it was late enough that this is the reason that the timing is a little funky. I can see this shot having gone in the second 4 bars of the intro, and it's my rough guess that they didn't have anything to replace it with, so had to truncate the sequence into what it is, adding some extra ornamentation to try and give the name credits some more weight. So, what was the shot? Well, it was this, or something like this anyway. This is a rough piece of concept art from Ivan Vajovic, who worked on the sequence. Obviously it's roughly composited, and I imagine looked better in motion, but this is roughly what it would have looked like. And yeah, it's not the best concept in the world. I understand why it was cut. I'm more baffled by why it doesn't appear to have been replaced by anything. But that's not the only cut thing, as thanks to a VFX breakdown from Real Time Studios, the company behind the sequence, in the opening seconds, you can see that the sequence has a longer energy effect on the lamp that isn't present in any of the sequences thus far. That this is missing will have further ramifications, as we will discuss later. I'm going to try my best to not paraphrase the excellent 5 Who fans video on the subject, and talk about my own different issues with the logo. If you want a more comprehensive breakdown as to why this logo is flawed, go watch that video. I'm here to talk about this logo's implementation within the sequence, and why it doesn't quite work. My first point here is that the logo is just the wrong shape. Every classic era logo is stacked, and that's the case with the Diamond logo. Why is that? Well, it's because the aspect ratio was a square of 4:3 as opposed to the more modern 16:9 and beyond. Stacking the logo in the classic era meant better readability. You were simply taking up more of the space, and it meant you didn't have great swathes of empty space above and below the logo. Every logo in the modern era, bar the new Diamond reinvention, has been horizontal, taking advantage of the wider aspect ratio. This is still making the most of the space, as now you haven't got empty space on either side, with the top and bottom being less of a concern. This is even more of a case in the most recent eras, as the aspect ratio has only widened out to 2:1 for the Chibnall and RTD2 eras of the show. As previously stated, the Diamond logo is stacked, and not only that, is encased within a square shape, which makes its positioning awkward in the title sequence, as we have these vast gaps on either side where there's just nothing. And that's not to say that a stacked logo can't work in a wider aspect ratio, but there is a reason that the Doctor Who logos of the modern era have tended towards the horizontal design. Let's take the Star Wars logo, one of the most iconic pieces of graphic design in all of media, as our example. This is predominantly used in a stacked context, and does work very well in the opening title sequence despite Star Wars being a wide 2.35:1 aspect ratio, so what's the deal? And it's all about the integration. Notably, the Star Wars logo is moving away from the camera, and being in a stacked format allows it to disappear into a point in the distance, in a way a horizontal logo wouldn't allow. And hey, what's that? Oh, it's the original 1970s Bernard Lodge sequence, and it's the original Diamond logo moving away from the camera, disappearing into a point in the distance. And that's all without mentioning the fact that the original Diamond logo was created for the sequence, rather than the sequence being created for the logo. The diamond was chosen because Bernard Lodge had a square stencil he was using for a section of the title sequence, and he realised he could create a logo to work within that. So, in creating a sequence to fit around the logo, it's only fair to assume that you might take some cues from the original sequence and incorporate the shape of the logo into it somehow. There's been 50 years since that sequence debuted, and we have made vast advancements in VFX technology since then. We can do some cool stuff with it, right? Right? So, how is the logo utilised within the sequence itself? So I tuned into the Star Beast, excited to see how they would integrate the new logo into the title sequence, having already seen some interesting fan concepts out there. And then the sequence aired, and it was a PNG and a PowerPoint transition. This is one of the most confusing choices I've seen from a new era of Doctor Who, let alone the start of a big push to make the franchise have a more global reach. It just looks cheap. Okay, but let's back up. Since the 1970s, the logo has had a level of skeuomorphism, which, to put it simply, is when a piece of design is made to resemble a physical object. In the case of media franchise logos, this often means making them look like brushed metal. Part of the reason you do this in a media context is that then you can have your logo interact with the light and feel more impressive and physical. Think of the shimmer in the Lucasfilm or Marvel Studios logos. That's what I'm talking about. So, since the 1970s and the original Diamond logo, this has been the case. Look at the way the diamond reacts to the light as it passes through the vortex. This culminated in the classic era with the 7th and 8th Doctor's titles including these big, impressive and bold CGI-created logos that fly past the camera and are skeuomorphized into shiny, reflective metal. And the modern era has followed suit, with nearly every logo within the context of the title sequence having some kind of interaction with the lighting of the scene. Even the Chibnall era logo, which is presented in its flat graphic context everywhere but the titles, including the original logo reveal, is made to resemble a brassy metal in the opening sequence. So in comes the big logo reveal for RTD2, with the logo being rendered as a full CG model glowing with regeneration energy. It's designed with skeuomorphism in mind, replicating the kind of nameplate you might see on the side of a train with the shiny steel texture. And this logo animation would be included in all the teasers and trailers leading up to the show's release. So why was this static PNG included instead? It's baffling. Did they just not have enough time to animate the logo coming in properly using the pre-existing CG asset? Why is it just a flat image that isn't reflecting any of the colourful lighting surrounding it? How is this what you're wanting to put your best foot forward with? You're putting so much money into the show, how is it that your brand identifier looks this cheaply put together? And here's the thing, the rest of the sequence is really slickly done. The animation of the TARDIS, the name lettering, it's all a really consistent presentation until you get to the logo. This static PNG doing a grow turn PowerPoint animation is really out of step with the production value of the rest of the sequence. And that's without mentioning the way the BBC logo awkwardly appears above the logo. It's so big and awkward and just fades in and out without feeling like it's a natural part of the sequence. This was fine in previous eras like the 12th and 13th titles because the BBC logo was rendered in a similar manner to the logo itself. In the Capaldi titles, it appears with the logo and shimmers in the same manner as the logo itself. In the Whittaker titles, the BBC logo appears with this flash that brings in the central line and is also rendered in the same brassy metal finish. Here, the BBC logo is oversized and bright white and feels awkwardly tacked on, something of an afterthought. But hey, it's fine. They'll fix all of that for the Gatwa era, right? Of course they didn't. For the Church on Ruby Road, the only thing that was changed was the BBC logo. Now coming in with the standardized BBC logo animation that features across all of their branding. This works a lot better for me. Not only is it more stylized and interesting than a simple fade, but the animation also happens in sync with the piano ornamentation, so feels way more motivated as a result. It's a good change, I'm a fan of it. They only had a month to update the titles. Maybe by the time the new series releases in May, they will have properly fixed it. They did indeed fix it for the new series. The PNG is no more. Still doesn't mean it's good. The new sequence now includes a fully CG logo in the environment. Instead of a PowerPoint animation, we now have this materialization effect. The regeneration energy effect from the logo reveal and teasers is present, and is the main lighting for the logo here. And yes, it does feel a heck of a lot better in its integration within the sequence. Unfortunately for them, I still really don't like it. Because they rendered it in such a way that the backlighting of the regeneration energy is their main light source, the logo is horrifically dark for most of the time it is on screen. It takes far too long for the doctor part of the logo to be in any way discernible, and it's not until the very last second before the logo disappears that you can even tell the diamond is rendered blue. It's really weird. The title sequence is really bright and colourful, but the decision to backlight the logo so heavily means that none of the logo design is able to stand out. What they also didn't do was use the vortex as the main lighting source, so the logo barely interacts with it, which is a shame because the sequence is so bright that it would be easy to have the logo stand out and have the nice shimmery, skeuomorphic goodness that the logo deserves. But it doesn't do that. The logo barely has a chance to interact with its environment again in that last second once the regeneration energy has dissipated, before it's gone, and that sucks. But that's not the only thing that's changed, because the timing has changed just a little. The cloud bursting shot has changed, now featuring a bunch of planets and now lacking the snap zoom, which is a shame because I like the snap zoom, but I know that wasn't to everyone's taste. Instead, we get a slower push into the main vortex, which retimes the logo to the 13th bar and the second half of the melody. And that's where I think it's meant to be in my opinion. This timing works far better for me. However, this does mean that the piano accompaniment now doesn't come in with the BBC logo, so whilst the animation still makes it fit better, it feels less motivated than it did before. But this should be the least of my worries, because with this new update, and let's be honest here, it's weird that we're on our third iteration of this sequence already, we have the return of an old enemy. During the Capaldi run, a strange blight plagued the series. That being that the title sequence was often out of sync from the music. This could be as little as a couple of frames or whole seconds off. If you didn't notice, it's probably because the music is so busy and whiny that it was difficult for a viewer to find where the textual elements should land musically. Unfortunately, this has returned, and it's returned in the weirdest way possible. I mentioned earlier that there was another cut shot from the title sequence, and that was the extended lamp shot done to accompany the scream that leads into the main titles. In cases where the scream isn't incorporated into the preceding shot, this is there to create a buffer. Space Babies doesn't have a cold open, it's titles, then episode. But instead of having that extended lamp shot, it just pushes the music along the timeline, resulting in the music being out of sync with the sequence. It's so frustrating. All those lovely flourishes that the TARDIS moves in sync with, now superfluous. Oh, the logo feels more musically led coming in with the 13th bar melody? It'd be nice if it did come in with that, wouldn't it? Too bad. It's so weird because they did have this buffer element created for them, and for some reason just didn't use it. Hell, why not just put the scream into the Hooniverse ident? They're attached to the episodes, there's no reason they have to be completely separate entities like this. The point is, like all of the nitpicking before this is an unforced error that could easily have been resolved before the episodes aired. This is not the level of quality control you want from the major relaunch of what you want to be a major global brand. So, what's the takeaway from all of this? Well, I just think that Doctor Who deserves better. I think this title sequence is so close to greatness, and yet just stumbles at the finish line. The visuals are great. I really do love the colours of it, and whilst the cutting takes some getting used to, I don't hate it. But it's all these little things, from the timing being off, to the logo not fitting the aspect ratio, to stuff I haven't even discussed, like the realistic chuffing sound. They all just add up to create something that is just underwhelming compared to what I want from this big push for the franchise. I'm really liking RTD2 so far, but it's such a shame that its primary piece of brand identity is lacking. Why aren't you giving the logo the treatment it deserves within the title sequence? Why is the emphasis not there? Why is it not lit? Why was it originally a PNG? I'm just confused and disappointed. As I say, I love me some fan-made titles, and I've seen some excellent ones over the years, and it's a shame that the official titles can't match some of those. But it's fine. Ultimately, this is a non-issue. Few but me care about this. I mean, I'm the only person making a half-hour video on the subject. This does not matter. I love this show, and I really want it to succeed, and part of that is just having it look as good as possible, and this just isn't that for me. What doesn't help is Murray Gold's seeming inability to release the music from the show. We still don't have the Series 10 soundtrack, and the 60th anniversary specials and Season 1 soundtracks are nowhere to be seen. The fact that a fan rip of the 60th anniversary concert is the best way to currently listen to the theme or the 15th Doctor's theme is insane. These are also important pieces of branding, and on top of that, are absolute bangers. People want to listen to them, and they should be able to freely stream. I understand that Sagan Akinola was working with a stripped-down orchestra, so it was less of a task to get it mixed, but his music was still promptly released. I don't get how we're still missing the great scores for the 60th specials. Hell, I don't get how they haven't even thought to release singles of these themes so at least those are accessible, if the comprehensive episodic scores are still a ways out. Anyways, that's that. I don't especially like being negative. This wasn't all that fun for me. I'm just gonna go watch an episode of Doctor Who and try and forget about this. Sorry for wasting your time. That being said, please note that I have always been like this. When the 11th Hour debuted, I complained to a friend that the new arrangement of the theme tune wasn't as hummable as the last one. I was 9. This isn't a recent development.